Hello and welcome back to Seconds Out. Today we bring you another one of our best interviews of 2024 as I caught up with Jamie Moore in Manchester following the signing of Pat Brown to Matchroom Boxing, the official announcement of his turnover to the professional game. In this interview, me and Jamie got onto a really interesting topic, talking about Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. and what route should Conor Benn take in choosing the financial security in facing Eubank Jr. or chasing his legacy and taking a world title shot against Mario Barrios for the WBC welterweight world title. Jamie then led on to a story of his own and saying he wished he chose financial security but retired with no money when he left the professional game, and reminding all current fighters out there that a boxing career in the ring is very short and it is important that you take these big fights when they're available to set yourself up for life after boxing.
This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Jamie Moore here in his hometown of Manchester. Jamie, what a beautiful setting we find ourselves in today. 20 stories here in Manchester. We've just sat down, had a lovely bit of lunch, and here we are now. Pat Brown to Matchroom. It's very, very big. He's been one of the most talked about Olympians coming out of that 2024 cycle. Just how excited you, first of all, to see him partner up with Eddie Hearn at Matchroom?
Yeah, Eddie's obviously the best in the game, he's best in his country, and Pat deserves the biggest platform to go on. You know, like you say, he was the most sought after Olympian coming out of the Olympics from Team GB, and rightly so. You know, he's a phenomenal talent, and he's going to stylistically, he's really suited to the pros. So it's going to be a fantastic journey.
I've seen him in an interview with TalkSport, I believe, saying that his guilty pleasure is loving a tear-up. Yeah. Are we going to see some absolute tear-ups? Possibly a headline. We can see the Co-op Live just down there. I'm sure that AO's not too far from here. Are we going to see Pat Brown headline some massive nights in Manchester?
Absolutely. And yeah, I think you're going to see some tear-ups as well. That's stylistically, that's him, down to a T. And, you know, he's very good technically, but his style is an aggressive type of style. So it's a fan's dream. And, you know, over the next 10 years, Manchester boxing is just going to grow and grow over the next 10 years. You know, the next generation are coming through now. You've got Pat Brown, you've got Conor Tudsbury, we've got another kid, Alfie Middlemiss, coming through. They're all turning pro really soon. You've got Will Crawler, Andy Crawler's brother, and you've got, you know, Pat Barrett at Collyhurst and Moston. They've got a gym full of good fighters coming through. So the next 10 years in Manchester is going to be massive. And, you know, Akib Fiaz is making his comeback soon as well, so he's going to be back in the mix. So I'm just excited to see him be involved in what's going to happen and progress over the next 10 years.
Just quickly on Akib Fiaz, obviously we saw that really bizarre incident back in June which led to a cancellation on fight day. How tricky has that process been? Because we've not seen a lot said about it, and kind of almost the opposite to the Conor Benn thing. It's kind of just fell silent until Akib put his statement out saying that he is clear to fight again. Yeah. But how were those 5 months for Akib?
It's been difficult for him. I felt really bad for him because he had no involvement in the stuff what was going on, and he's just got dragged into it as collateral damage, and he's had to just sit it out and basically wait for the decision to be made. Look at the evidence. They saw that he wasn't involved in it, and then he's clear to fight. So it's been a difficult time for him, but I'm sure that he'll pick himself back up again. He's back in the gym now, back training, and then hopefully get a date early next year.
How upsetting for you was it as well? Obviously, if you knew Akib had no involvement, you sitting there as his trainer and having to see him be inactive but through no fault of his own. As a trainer, how upsetting and frustrating is that for you?
It's very frustrating, but you know, there's lots of different scenarios where you see fighters having to sit out. You know, injuries, for instance. It's sort of not their fault, but there's nothing they can do about it at the same time. It's just one of those situations. This one was a totally different type of situation what I've ever seen. But my point is, I've had to support fighters and be there for fighters many times, you know, going through frustrations and them having to be sat there and they're in the same position where they can't earn money for the families, which is horrible for them. But you've got to try and give them that light at the end of the tunnel to say, listen, I'm sure everything will be all right soon, and once you're back up and running, this will be a period of time where you look back on it, and I'm sure you'll have learnt things about other people, about yourself, the people who was there for you to support you, and in the long run it'll make you sort of mentally stronger.
And just lastly on Akib, when do you believe we can see him back in the ring?
Well, hopefully they're talking about either the end of January or early February, so around about that time.
And we'll move away now. It is fight week for the one, Cameron Vong, in a brilliant step up. I've just been talking to Sam Jones about it and saying how only just over a year on from his pro debut, we're seeing him in a fight against a fighter like Gavin Gwynn, who's been at some incredible highs in the sport. I asked Sam what was the reason for taking such a big fight at such an early stage, and he pointed at you. What do you see in Cameron Vong that makes you want to challenge him so much at such an early stage of his career?
Because fighters like Cameron, who are so talented, if you match him with 12 journeymen in the first 12 fights, they get an overinflated opinion of how good they are, where they are. You know, I'm pretty sure everyone would have been going, this is the next coming of Sugar Ray Leonard, and that would have been too much, too soon, too much smoke blew up his arse, which is no good for any fighter. And he needed good, stiff, solid lessons to make sure that he realises the pro game's a hard game, and that some of the stuff what he was doing, that sort of flashiness and expending energy what he didn't need to expend, can be detrimental to you in the long run, in a longer fight against a more simplistic fighter who's just solid at what he does. And you know, Jeff Afford was a gamble. That was his fifth fight in a 10-rounder in his fifth fight against a good, solid pro whose record doesn't give him credit for how good he is. And I knew he'd drop rounds. I knew he'd have difficult rounds. The reason for taking that fight was to make sure that he was put into a position in rounds 6, 7, 8, say, where mentally he's questioning as much as physically. He has to come through that, get through the other side, and then he goes, okay, I know what I did right, I know what I did wrong. I'm going to go away, I'm going to watch it back, I'm going to think about it, I'm going to speak to me, I'm going to explain to him what he should have done instead of doing different scenarios. And then in the next fight, he's going to improve, he's going to go away, because I know his mindset is always, I want to get better, I want to get better. So he's a dream fighter to train. You couldn't get a better type of fighter. You know, he trains alongside Jack Catterall, so he couldn't have a better role model. But he's got the work ethic, what you need to go right to the very top. What you also need are lessons on board along the way. And the reason why Gavin Gwynn is a good fight for him is not because it's an easy fight, is because he's going to be tested by him. And the only way you get better is by coming through tough tests. So I don't want him to have easy fights, even though stylistically he's got the style where he could make it easy. But Gavin has also got attributes what could make it hard for him. So he's got to make sure his decision making's right. He's got to make sure he doesn't put himself into positions where he puts himself at risk. And he did that against Jeff Afford, and we've addressed it, looked at how he did it, why he did it, and the reasons how he can get away from it and not make the mistakes in future. So this is like a harder version of the Jeff Afford fight. And now he's got to go and put the lessons on board, what he's supposed to have took on board. The maturity I've seen in him in this camp compared to that one is massive. I'm getting shouted over for the picture here. Yeah.
Right, just picking things back up, Jamie. Obviously, we were talking about Cameron Vong and the way how you've said you've seen a much more mature version of Cameron, especially taking things away from that Jeff Afford fight. I know you don't want to overlook Gavin Gwynn, and I asked this question, Sam, and he said we'll talk afterwards. I want to see if you can say anything on a win over Gavin Gwynn is going to be some statement before 10 fights. What type of level do you then take Cameron Vong on to next if he is to come through Gavin Gwynn?
See, now we have to plateau there. Like, I'm all for getting those lessons on board at an early stage, because what I'm trying to do is teach him, or we're trying to do as a team, is get him lessons and teach him stuff now. So what you don't want to do is give him bad habits early. You know, get used to blasting kids out, doing stuff, you know, throwing caution to the wind to his defence and stuff like that. Now, you also need to be able to give him fights where you gain him confidence and you can sort of market him and stuff like that. I'm quite happy for him to sort of step down one level after this one, because I feel like his apprenticeship so far has been much more difficult than it needed to be. But I feel like we should set the foot off a little bit, get him some rounds under his belt, or getting some opponents where they're not a journeyman, but the type of fighters where they'll come and have a go with him, and then he might get him out of there in fighting fashion, and then we can sort of sit back and go, see, now that's what happens. Maybe that guy would have took him 6 or 8 rounds when he first turned pro, or 6 months in. But now he's getting him out of there in 1 or 2 rounds, and that's because of the lessons what he's been put on board early on. So I don't mind slowing it down a little bit, because I don't want you're fighting an ex-British and European champion. I don't want him to then go, well, where do he go after that? Do we actually go and fight for the European title? I don't think he's ready for that quite yet, but I'd say in another 3 or 4 fights, then I would be going, yeah, let's do it.
Just moving away from the stable and looking at some of the biggest talking points we've seen in the sport recently, I think one of them, and I've been saying this in every interview, and while it's been a couple of weeks now, I still can't really get my head around the fact in 2024 we saw Mike Tyson back in a professional ring against Jake Paul. Something doesn't really add up there, but boxing works in crazy ways. Obviously, with yourself, I'm sure you watched Mike Tyson in his prime and you got to fully experience Iron Mike. For yourself, how upsetting was it to see Mike Tyson back in the ring, and especially after the years of what's happened?
It wasn't nice to see, and I bought a £500 ticket to watch Tyson ringside when he fought Julius Francis, and I'd only just been paid £700 for me 3rd pro fight. So that's how much I love Mike Tyson. That's my point. So it wasn't nice to see, but I just hope that he got paid what he wanted to get paid, and he's come out healthy. And maybe he wanted just that one last ring walk or whatever, but I hope he got out of it what he wanted to get out of it, and that he's come out of it healthy.
For Jake Paul, he seems to have almost grabbed the boxing world by the balls now, it seems, when you see the likes of Artur Beterbiev, Daniel Dubois, Carl Froch, Tony Bellew, they're all gunning for him. They all want a slice of the cake that Jake Paul brings to the table. When you see names like that, and in terms of ability-wise, stooping down to levels that Jake Paul's on, what do you make of that?
Listen, everyone's called Canelo out for years from all different weight divisions, and that's because of the money. They're not calling Jake Paul out because they think he's a good fighter. They're calling him out because he brings a big checkbook, which is fine. If I've always said it, I'm not against YouTubers boxing, even though this isn't YouTubers. Well, it originally started out as YouTubers boxing, because as long as real boxing fans can differentiate between the two, it doesn't matter. But now we've got to the point where they're mixing in with the two. But people know. Like, look at Jake Paul's record. I think he's beat 1 boxer. Mike Tyson might be second. The rest of them have been ex-MMA fighters. So you've got to take it for what it is. He's bringing that much money to the table. I'm not surprised fighters want to fight him. I was a light middleweight, and I'd have been probably eating food every night to try and get up to light heavyweight, so I could try and put myself in the equation. So it is what it is. People are in the sport to achieve. They're also in the sport to change their life. And if you fight Jake Paul, you change your life.
We've seen some other big news that Conor Benn is put out a statement saying that he is cleared to fight by the NADP now following a hearing. A lot of fights out there for him. We know that he was in Philadelphia watching Jerome Boots Ennis. There was a WBC world title fight at welterweight with Mario Barrios and Abel Ramos on the Jake Paul Mike Tyson undercard. But a fight that's really been sticking out for Conor Benn is a Chris Eubank Jr. fight. As a fan of the sport, and when you look at what route to take, there's either the world title route or the big money fight route. What route do you want to see Conor Benn go down?
Listen, I've spoken about this a lot, and I wasn't a world champion, but I'm content with my career. I was British Commonwealth European champion, and I was in Fight of the Year 3 times. I retired with no money. Would I have preferred to have had £1 million in the bank or a world title on my mantelpiece? I would say £1 million, because that £1 million could transform not just mine, but my wife's and my kids, and potentially their kids' lives forever. A WBC, an IBF, a WBO world title is not going to change their lives, and it's an achievement and it's something to be proud of, but it doesn't define you. neither does money, but it can change your life for the better. So Jack Carroll has now changed his family's life, and he's not a world champion, but he's changed his family's life, and I'm so happy for him. But he should be a world champion. Now he can do it the other way. He doesn't have to win a world title and sacrifice that and then go, right, and now I'm going to make money. He's earned good money, and now he can go out there and he's in a privileged position where he can sort of go, I'm not really, the money's not my goal, a world title's my goal, and I can sacrifice a bit of the money to make sure that I get that world title shot.
So in that case, looking at what Conor Benn has out there, are you saying that he should probably look at taking that Chris Eubank Jr fight, which was no doubt the biggest fight on the table, and also probably the biggest fight in British boxing at the moment? Yeah,
maybe so. And I don't know Conor's financial situation, but I've got a feeling that he's done really well financially. He's had a struggle, or a tough year or so with the stuff what he's had to go through. But if he's financially secure, then I would be going for a world title. If he feels like he needs to a bit more financial security and then go for a world title, 100% I'd take the Eubank fight. It's a big ask because of the size difference. But in terms of technical ability, Conor Benn, his pound for pound punch is harder than Eubank. Will that weight transfer as he goes up through weights? I don't know. But I think Eubank's seen better days also. I think I think he's past his best, and I think he's on. Making middleweight is going to be a hell of a struggle for him. So that could play into it. But if financially it's an incentive what he wants to chase after, then go for the Eubank fight.
Well, Jamie, I'm going to leave it there. I'm sure I'll probably see you again later in the week in Birmingham. But if not, best of luck on Saturday night and enjoy your busy boxing schedule packed out. Not even just until Christmas. We've been talking about off camera.
Next 10 years. I'll enjoy this next boxing ride for the next... In fact, 8 years. I think my wife can retire in 8 years. Well, I'll enjoy this next ride for about 8 years. I'm going to semi-retire in Tenerife. And whichever of the boxers are left around, the back end of the career, they'll have to come train in Tenerife instead.
Fair enough. Jamie, always good catching up. Speak again soon.